Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today let's review Bard's Tale 4 Director's Cut. And sometimes you come across a game that was obviously a lot of fun to make. And Bard's Tale 4 Deep Burrow, that was the original name of this game, and it got a Director's Cut later on. There are actually two different games in my Steam library. I don't know why that is, but it's one of those games where you can tell that the developers had a lot of fun making it. Made by veterans of the RPG genre, this is a throwback to the old school dungeon crawlers of the 1990s, but with some modern adjustments. It doesn't take itself too seriously, with its somewhat standard story about good against evil, and a party going after some wizard who is driving a wedge between the fantasy races like dwarves and elves and humans. What makes this game special, though, is the humor, the wacky characters that use the over-the-top accents that they have. So you assemble a party, which is kind of fun to do because you choose from quite a few races like elves and dwarves and humans, with each special ability, like dwarves, for instance, cannot be pushed around on the grid when you're into a battle. And you have various classes to choose from, like there's a rogue class, a wizard class, a fighter class. So that's really fun. That really brings me back to the old days where the fun started with creating a party. Now, in the old games, you walked one tile at a time. You can still do that here, but there is real-time walking, which is way more convenient. Now, the dungeons are actually elaborate mazes that you go through. They look quite diverse and very colorful, although a little rough around the edges in terms of the graphics, and the textures, and so forth. Unfortunately, this does not feel like a living world, as NPCs sort of idly stand around doing nothing, waiting for you to interact with them. But there are some really great songs playing in the background as you explore these dungeons, almost to the point that I want to seek out the soundtrack, because it's that good. Along the way, you fight hordes of enemies and solve puzzles. Let's start with the puzzles. Now, I did not really enjoy the puzzles. They are overused at times. I mean, there's this ferry puzzle that has you steering around this sort of ferry alongside a certain route that you have to figure out. And I mean, it's used everywhere in this game, and I just don't like it. There's some puzzles with spinning gogs, or you have to unravel statues or moving blocks, that sort of stuff. That's pretty old school stuff. But unfortunately, the rewards are somewhat random and quite small. I had this elaborate puzzle that I was really proud of, that I've solved it, and then I opened the chest and there was just some gold there, something like that. So it feels like the rewards are kind of random or recycled. I don't know what's going on with the loot in this game. But the best thing of this game is the combat, which is amazing. If you know what you're doing, that is. I mean, combat is turn-based, and there's quite a bit of strategy involved. Also here, there's a lot of humor, as characters in your party will comment before you enter the combat phase on a certain situation, like you're fighting this giant, and some party member will comment, "We will die here, but it will be glorious." So that's kind of fun, all these little interactions between the party members. The combat feels more like a game of chess, which character you put in front, which at the back, after which enemy are you going first, maybe the hard-hitting one, or do you go after the wizard that keeps spawning enemies, or do you go after the archers at the back, that sort of stuff. And you really need to break it down to the core, you know, what can they do, what can you do to counter their attacks, and what attacks are effective against their attacks, that sort of thing. It is quite a bit like chess. Maybe you use a special, or do you wait for the next turn? You really need to deal with the buffs, healing options, spells, attacks with swords or arrows, that sort of thing. And I like that stuff. I like experimenting with the combat, finding the perfect combination to dispose of my enemies. There are two downsides to this. When you make a mistake in this game, for instance, you did not recruit the right person for the job, or you forgot to use the power that was really effective against a certain enemy. So if you make a mistake, it's hard to recover from that. And there's something else that's the second downside, and sort of ties into the first one. There is a lot of trial and error in this game. You die a lot, because it's not an easy game, and then you retry. I like that stuff. I like going back and forth to the Adventures Guild, creating a new party member from scratch, or picking one up that I left there. So that one is handy for a certain situation. That keeps the gamer on their toes. And again, it's not an easy game to play, even on a normal difficulty. You will run into certain fights that you cannot win at that moment, but there's always some other route to take, or maybe sneak past these enemies and come back later when you feel stronger. So, in summary, this is a really good game. I really enjoyed this RPG, The Bard's Tale 4. It's really a good game, but it's probably not for everyone because of the punishing gameplay and the trial and error that you will have to go through. But again, I think it's recommended. Hope you guys liked the video, and I'll see you next time.
At your command.